Spain is very similar to Greece.
I like the weather there. It was warm, it was sunny, and it looked really good.
I've never been to Madrid, so I'm really looking forward to the trip.
We're gonna try and play how we can, try and be the best we can.
Playing for third is still a big deal.
And H2K could be in some trouble, but the Meganar comes in. Svenskeren getting low, taken down. It's a double kill over to Hjarnin, and they have turned it around.
Pretty scared going up against them. H2K is definitely a good team.
Playing SK would be pretty hard. I think it will be a hard game to face them.
Odoamne does what he can, but everybody on H2K is melting.
Fantastic performance from SK Gaming.
We have a lot more to prove.
Placing fourth would be a failure.
Finishing third is really important if you want to make Worlds.
Our goal is to go to Worlds.
If we're gonna go out, we should go with our head high.
Germany to come here to the Palacio Vista Alegre for the conclusion of the 2015 European League of Legends Spring Playoffs. As you can see, everything's fired up in the Palacio Vista Alegre. Still some fans outside waiting to take their seats and be witness to all the action live right here. H2K very concentrated on the match coming up ahead, that third place match they absolutely have to win. And there's SK Gaming as they walked onto the stage just a couple of minutes ago, getting set up as well, needing to be in the zone to grab that third place spot here. And there are the Spanish casters, Barbecue Sharon and Ulises, who are casting for the home crowd. I'm Ifje Schokke, and joining me on the analyst desk this weekend are two very familiar faces, coaches for the Copenhagen Wolves and Gambit Gaming, Dentist and Leviathan. Welcome, thank you so much for joining us here in Spain.
We're in Spain.
Yeah, you definitely are, we all are, and let's take a look back and see how exactly we got here. Last week's semifinals were dramatic, to say the least, starting off with Fnatic beating out H2K, but they did need 5 games and every single game of that one counted, and they had to react to the bans that H2K was throwing out, banning out Huni.
Absolutely, they banned out Huni in every single game, and H2K was not able to adapt their bans. They were pretty stable with their banning the same champions every single game, so adapting in the series will be a big point for them today.
Yeah, and it seemed like as the series went on, H2K's level of play also dropped. Their inexperience of playing best of fives really showed, and we'll see if they're able to bring it up today.
Yeah, they got to bounce back today, and we talked about drama. SK Gaming versus the Unicorns of Love last week. Still haven't gotten over that one. The rookies taking down the #1 seed, and SK, they were baited into playing a playstyle different than their own, and it wasn't working for them.
Yeah, I really want to see SK play their style, the 3 lanes pushing all the time. Freddie was saying they played more than one style, but when they were playing those other styles, it just didn't look as good, didn't look SK. So I want to see them return to what they're good at.
Also, Unicorns was able to just adapt to SK. Whenever SK went for the late game stealing, they just went crazy on them in the mid game and searched for fights everywhere. The typical Unicorn style. So they did everything right.
They're crazy. That means that the Unicorns of Love and Fnatic are in tomorrow's finals. But today, SK and H2K are playing for third place and the championship points today. Very important as we look towards the end of the year. Today's match is the difference between 30 and 50 points going into the summer split. The team with the most points at the end of the summer split will automatically qualify for one of 3 spots at Worlds. The other 2 spots will go to the winner of the summer split and the winner of the regional qualifier. So the teams really have to fight here to make sure that they get those points. But there still will be a score to settle after today's best of 5 right here in Europe. As following our broadcast, we're going to kick it across the Atlantic to North America, where there's a third place match for Team Impulse versus Team Liquid as well. So a great day of League here upon us. And throughout today's third place match, we want to touch base with you guys at home. Tweet at LL Esports and let us know what has been the biggest surprise in the European LCS playoffs so far and why. I'd like to turn to our analyst as well, Dentist.
Well, for me, it was definitely Gambit Gaming. They started off pretty slow, starting with 5 losses in a row, but then stacked up the wins, 7-0. Started in the playoffs, went to playoffs, and then fall short in the quarter. But as we all know, 10 points are all you need, right?
Thanks to this guy.
And in my completely unbiased opinion, I have to go with my 10-point brothers, the Copenhagen Wolves. Last place in the previous split, now they're in the middle of the Wolf Pack, and it's just... It can only go up from here for the Copenhagen Wolves.
You guys warm my heart. Well, remember to tweet your answers at LL Esports. Be sure to use that hashtag LCS so we can go over them right here on the desk as the show progresses. Now, let's get into the match at hand. between the first seed SK Gaming and the third place H2K. Both teams, they struggled to adapt, as we said, in their semifinal. But today, as they're playing teams that are more in line of their own style, they should be able to adapt better. Let's start by taking a look at SK Gaming's roster as they are on the red side for this one. Of course, Freddy122, Svenskeren, Fox, Forgiven, and Rated and Inner Flame. They are on the red side for games 1, 3, and 5. They chosen that as the higher seeds. And H2K chose blue in 2 and 4. So we're going to have 5 red side games if it comes to that for SK Gaming. Let's dive a little deeper into that semifinal for them. As said, playing someone else's style for SK doesn't seem to be their cup of tea, and they were forced into that.
Yeah, the point I wanted to touch on was the Dragons. I have my notes in front of me, and H2K and SK are the two teams that get the first Dragons the most. And SK has needed the 5 Dragon buff in the 5 of their last 8 games, and so I believe that Dragons between these two teams is going to be one of the most important things.
Yeah, absolutely. Both teams are mid-game oriented. They have a strong early game, a smooth transition to mid-game, and then they try to finish off their games in the mid-game. If those two styles clash, it depends on what team has the better early game, what team comes better into the mid-game, and then are they able to finish it out.
Yeah, talking about the strong early game and mid-game from SK Gaming, we of course think about Forgiven in semifinals getting banned out with Graves and Lucian. He doesn't have the same impact on the other champions. He actually chose 3 different ones to try out, and it didn't work out. And it's not, if he's not dominating, they actually need him to be a dominating force.
Let's be real here. Forgiven is a dominant AD carry on every champion. People say you can ban him out. No, you can just force him on champions that didn't work so well for the team SK in general. Forgiven himself, he's still amazing on those champions. Whether to put him on Tristana or Caitlyn, he will perform. But the team SK just plays pretty poorly around the late game scaling champions. It's definitely better to put him on Graves or Lucian, and Unicorns a bit smaller, banning them out every single game.
Yeah, when you put Forgiven on Graves or Lucian, he has the potential to just carry the game, take it away by himself. So when you see the bans today, you should expect to see a Graves and Lucian ban out of H2K.
All right, so thinking about that bottom lane more generally, also with Enrated, they didn't have the easiest time, and now they're up against Kasing and Hjarnan, and it's kind of the same style as Hylissang and Vardak. Hylissang very dominant support, and so is Kasing, so they might have a bit of trouble going into that matchup.
Yeah, I was actually speaking to Enrated earlier today, and he said their pick and ban preparation was heavily focused towards the bottom lane, so the bans out of this game should be very interesting. At least I assume he was telling me the truth. So they were, SK was paying very close attention to that, and we'll have to see if the lane dominant Enrated versus the very skilled roamer Kasing, we'll have to see how that goes.
Well, for me, it's like you got the stronger AD carry on SK, and you got the stronger support on H2K. This 2v2 matchup, if they decide to go 2v2, decides what position, AD carry or support, is more dominant in the 2v2 matchup.
Moving away from the bottom lane, you said they don't capitalize on the fact that Forgiven gets ahead. Someone who doesn't only capitalize but makes things happen for SK Gaming, we got to touch on him. Svenskeren in the semifinal, single-handedly carrying them to victories in 2 and 4, games 2 and 4. That is versus the Unicorns, choosing that Lee Sin.
Yeah, Svenskeren, when he's able to get that Lee Sin and able to get those early aggressive champions, can really set the pace for the team. The team likes to play pushed up, hitting the enemy tower, and when SK and Svenskeren are able to control the river and control the jungle lanes, it just allows SK to play their game.
Yeah, but we don't forget, Unicorns of Love as a team has a fairly poor early game warding. H2K, on the other hand, they're going to ward those places. They're going to deep ward, they're going to know where Svenskeren is, and then take away that whole early game aggression of Svenskeren. And if you put him on a champion like Lee Sin or Rek'Sai, where he's forced to make those early game plays, and you take that away by warding him out, then it might be interesting if he's able to adapt.
Yeah, definitely something that should be in the game plan for H2K. And let's take a look at their lineup there on the blue side for this one. Odoamne, Lulex, Ryu, Hjarnan, Kasing, and they are coached by Prowley. As said, they focused totally on banning out Huni in their games versus Fnatic, Shyvana, Hecarim, and Rumble, and they didn't adapt even when Fnatic found a solution to get back into the series. They did the same thing, which is not good in the best of 5.
No, definitely. Well, we rewatched all of the games, and it felt like H2K, especially in games 4 and 5, weren't able to hold that mental fortitude up straight. They were shaky, they weren't concentrated, they didn't play the usual game, and Fnatic on the other end, they went huge and just capitalized on their mistakes and ran away with 2 clear victories. They have to make sure that they make it stable through the series.
Yeah, like I said earlier, they have to be ready to play all 5 games in the series. Just because you get a lead and the enemy team gets a couple wins on you, you have to win 3 games regardless of how many they win.
Yeah, you can't let your head down if you know that you're going to be in for 5 games possibly. As said, those teams are same or similar in style much more than the teams that they played in the semifinal. Let's touch on a couple of key things here. Vision, as you touched on already. SK actually has a poor record when it comes to warding in the regular season. They generally place 720 wards less than their opponents placed against them. But when they play H2K, they do seem to place down more wards and to get that control early. So I think they haven't figured out when it comes to playing H2K in that same style.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a jungler like Svenskeren, as I said earlier, who's very dependent on those early game plays and who's able to carry the whole team when he got that secure vision control, then you have to adapt to the opponent. So SK in this series, they should focus on warding. They should focus on clearing the warding from H2K, and then you just get H2K, get Svenskeren going.
And it's also going to be that early game vision control that's going to allow the teams to secure the dragons, especially the first dragon. They're both, like I said before, really good at securing the first dragon and turning that into a victory. So it's going to be the vision game that's going to help enable the teams get that.
Very hotly contested. Well, you guys heard a lot of what we had to say about SK Gaming, but we're going to head on the stage to hear from one of the players who's standing by with Quickshot.
Thank you very much, Shocks. I am joined here by Forgiven, the most valuable player of the European Spring Split by far. And I'd like to start by awarding you the trophy, congratulating you on the award. And I'd like to ask, what does it feel like being a player who was quite controversial last year when you were playing for the Copenhagen Wolves, and now you're one of the most admired AD carries, arguably in the world?
I think I'm still the same player, it's just that I am playing on a team that is really gifted and I really enjoy my time here. So I think it actually pays out to the game by itself, and that's why I have supposedly the best split in my career. And I think it's not only me, but it's my team that actually makes me look so good.
It's fantastic to hear you talk about the team. Before we talk about SK as a whole, I don't know if you're aware, but you have been ahead of your lane opponent in CS in 21 out of 23 games at 10 minutes. How is it that you are so mechanically gifted that it doesn't matter the team, it doesn't matter the opponent, it doesn't matter the champion, you are always that far ahead?
Well, I think there is a player named Yiliang Peng that once said that you understand how good a player is when you face him on the lane. And when I started playing the game, I realized it quite fast. And for me, it's like the bread and butter. Like, it's the whole League of Legends beauty that when you play someone on the lane, you actually really want to win it and you really want to display how good of a player you are. So I always try to do that regardless of the matchup, regardless of the difficulty, regardless of the picks. I just want to be the best, and I thrive for it every single time, not only in the lane but after it. So I think it also displays quite a lot.
It does. MVP of the Spring Split after rejoining. Let's talk about SK as a whole. You guys are in the battle now for third place. What is your opinion of the level of competition here in Europe and how you personally felt throughout the year?
I think, like, I started playing after like season 3.5, like after the first split. I think personally it's the best split as of in terms of the mechanical players that play. I feel it's a really big improvement in comparison to the previous years. And for every single player, when you play good against a team or against players, it feels way more harder, and in the end, if you are good, it feels way better, you know, because, like, let's say if you win against the last team and you're like a god-like player, it doesn't matter, but if you play like a god against the first team, then it feels better. So for me, when I play good against a good team like H2K, Fnatic, or like, there are a lot of good teams. Like, I don't think there was a bad team with split, even for the last ones. So it feels really nice to play in LCS.
Well, it's very, very exciting to watch you. Just before we send you back to the desk, where does SK and Forgiven go from here? You guys are doing battle for championship points. Will we see Forgiven representing Europe at Worlds?
I have no clue. I have no clue.
Would you like to represent Europe at Worlds?
Obviously. I think at some point Europe deserves at least a final appearance. And if I'm blessed enough, I hope that at some point, if I'm a really good team, and I think SK, we have this potential, but potential is overblown sometimes. It will be nice to go there and prove that, like, our region is really good, and we are not only coping with quarter-final places and semi-final placements every single time. I will hope that someone makes it at some point, not me, but someone.
Absolutely fantastic answers. Thank you so much for your time, Forgiven. Congratulations on the award. You can join your team again as you get ready for picks and bans. For now, we're going to head back over to the analyst desk to take us into game.
Thank you so much, Trevor. And well, Forgiven, what a fantastic and lovely interview. Doesn't seem beaten down at all by the fact that he's playing here for third place, realizes how important it is, and just seems in the right spirits.
Just to pick up what he said, Forgiven as a player, he definitely deserves to play Worlds. And if it's for me, that guy is one of the best AD carries in the world. So if it's not him, who else is going to play on the world stage?
Yeah, and I really like the point that how he made, how he really gets up and wants to play against better players. He said it's okay to beat someone who's lower, but when he gets to beat someone who's good, he gets that energy. And that type of mindset is exactly what you need, and that type of mindset would take him a very long way on the world stage.
Yeah, and that type of mindset might get them to lock in the third place here. Absolutely has something to prove. Also very interesting, so much love for his colleagues as well, and saying that he thinks that the level in Europe overall has gone up when he plays other people. Have you guys experienced that as well?
Well, to be honest, I think this split wasn't that high of a quality split when it comes to the play-wise. Every team had their style, and they didn't change it that much during the split, and especially the teams who are in the semis and then in the final, they haven't changed that much. And to be fair, they didn't have to change that much because they were able to win every single game, or like most of their games, with that one style. So if you ask me, that split wasn't that much of a high quality.
Yeah, the split I think was about average for us because we were shown that when we had no preparation, Gambit Gaming, not having internet and me not being able to assist the team, we weren't able to win games. But once we were able to establish our strategy and get everything going, we won 7 games in a row, which means maybe the rest of the teams are weaker than we thought. But I'm here on the desk. I'm not behind the teams right now. So I think the teams here are pretty good and in Europe in general. And yeah, I'm excited for this match today.
I am as well. So without further ado, with the players set up and ready to roll, let's hand it over to our shoutcasters for picks and bans.
Muchas gracias, Shocks, and we are getting ready for this first game. I, of course, am Devin Pyrotechnics Young. Joining me is the awesome and talented Martin DeFicio Linga. How is it going? How are you finding Spain so far?
No, I love Spain, and I love the venue here. We got 2 teams on stage as well, playing for these very important points, the championship points, so they can potentially make Worlds next split, despite not making the finals this year.
Exactly, quite a decent difference to 50 points to the winner of today's matchup, 30 to the one who loses, and that can tip the balance in your favor going forward into the summer split, going forward into Worlds to try to make that regional qualifier, or just have the most points and by default go ahead and go in.
And I really can't wait to see the pick and ban phase in this series here, because H2K as a team, when they played Copenhagen and was in the quarterfinal, they had the same 3 bans. It was Urgot, it was the Cassiopeia, it was the Draven. That was it, every single game. Then when they played against Fnatic, 5 games, same bans, didn't change anything despite losing. It was 3 tank bans or top lane bans. Rumble was there, Shyvana was banned, and Hecarim was banned against Huni. Didn't change anything. Now, what is the game 1 here gonna show us? H2K's blue side every single game today. 5 games, there will be
They'll
blue
have the
side
first
all
pick,
5. Yes.
But SK have the
last
other 2
pick.
picks, and this is the thing. It's been a lot of debate as to whether or not one is better than the other with this meta we're in, where there are just so many viable options in a lot of the roles. But clearly H2K is a team that does their research. They know exactly what they want to ban. That doesn't waver based on one game or another. They know their opponents, and we've seen very specific targeted bans at SK Gaming throughout
Graves,
the split.
Lucian.
So,
2 most banned champions against SK Gaming, Graves, Lucian. We're expecting the same from H2K. Question is, how will SK react? Standard 1 would be try ban out Odoamne with the Sion, with the Maokai in the top lane, maybe put him on a Shen. Another choice is you look towards Lulex. He played 2 champions in the playoffs, Gragas and Sejuani. That's the only thing he played. Or maybe, I mean, you want to look towards the bottom lane. SK Gaming struggled getting kills against Unicorns of Love. He's the first AD carry ban, and the Gragas, as we talked about.
Yeah, Gragas off the table, Kog'Maw as well. The Lucian Graves, no surprises. As the timer ticks down for the 3rd one, we have seen a fair amount of Lulu targeting away SK Gaming. It's actually going to be the Zed ban on Fox this time.
Okay.
That's what we'll see for game number 1.
So LeBlanc is open, and a lot of teams in Europe likes to early pick it if Zed is being banned away. And for H2K, it's very important they get an AP mid laner. And the reason I say this is because Odoamne mainly plays tanks in the top lane. Sion, Maokai is the 2 main picks for him. If he wants to play those picks, you cannot go for physical mid laner, because then you suddenly have pure physical damage dealers in an AD carry and a physical mid laner. That doesn't work for them. This also explains the Zed ban, because they don't want to play it themselves for that reason. Instead, you're going to see Ahri, Diana, LeBlanc. These going to be the mid lane picks for H2K and Rio. At least that's what we expect.
Orianna possibly thrown in there too.
Could be
Depends
there
on
too.
the type of comp they want to run. With the Jinx banned away too now, so you see a couple of Yarno's champions being taken off the board. He's been, over the course of the split, much more preferring the likes of Sivir. But with Kog'Maw and Jinx off the table, this can prevent the insane snowballing that we've seen come out of those hyper carries.
And it's 2 hyper carries. That is the important one. 2 hyper carries. SK Gaming, when they lost to Unicorns of Love in Game 5, the game that decided who went to the final and who went to play the 3rd place match, they couldn't close out the game. They went late game. It was a Caitlyn pick for Unicorns a lot, but they went late. Vardax ended up being one of the big carries for the Unicorns, and therefore SK lost. With these two bans here, we know Yanin loves to play that style. It's taken away, but it's not completely done. There are other late game carries you can pick if you want to buff them up with a Lulu, with a Nunu. For them, I mean, I've even seen Lucian being used as some sort of a hyper carry, and I know Yanin can play that one as well.
And now they go ahead and take away the Lulu first. I mean, this is still a pick away from Inrated, but it makes me think that they might have some other tricks up their sleeves to, you know, boost up the champions that they are going to have. Because Lulu gives you a lot of artificial tankiness. We'll see what SK answer with on their side.
It's one of the few AP top laners
that is also an option. The Janna, though, they've got that picked up, so they have a speedy disengage support. They've got a very mobile jungler now for Svenskeren in the form of Rek'Sai. I'm really curious to see how they flesh this composition out, because they haven't revealed anything just yet. That's crucial.
It's fun to see how Lee Sin was the big talking point between Unicorns of Love and SK Gaming. It was banned away in the last game because Svenskeren had just gone completely crazy on it. It's open here, but he prefers the Rek'Sai instead, showing a bit of the priority for SK Gaming, at least for now. Janna, also just a bit of a takeaway. You don't want to give Lulu Janna in a potential protect the AD carry setup. That's nearly impossible. But we also know Kesing prefers Thresh or Annie because they give him more roaming potential in the early game, which is something he likes to use, where N-rated is a support who just sits and babysits his AD carry.
Right, but with the Lulu Flex pick, they have a lot of options here. They can send in support if they want, or they can put it on Auto 1 top. That's not going to be the case as they lock in the Maokai and the Nidalee for Lulax.
Okay, so it's going to be Lulu support, unless Rio wants it in the mid lane, but he's still been focusing on the Assassins mainly. He's been one of the big playmakers here in the playoffs for H2K.
I was going to say, during the regular season, it was very different. He was a bit more of a supportive style. However, then they go ahead and go a little bit different, where Ryu starts stepping up into a carry role. Forgiven, thinking about a couple of different AD carries this time. We'll see what he goes with.
If he wants the lane dominance, he's going to go for Caitlyn. Caitlyn and Janna together is a disgusting lane to play against. You don't want to face that 2-on-2. And that's what we are, once again, expecting from the likes of SK Gaming. Because
especially here in Game 1.
They tried to play this non-lane bully style where they played passive and go late game, and it didn't work in the semi-final at all for them. Those were the games they lost. This is the SK Gaming we know. Strong early jungler, Rek'Sai, it's there. Lane bullies, okay, you have Janna, Caitlyn, one of the best 2v2 lanes possible. That's gonna take your tower if you face them, because you cannot stop them unless you start ganking them. And then also the Shyvana. While Freddy died a lot on the champion because he played over-aggressive, it's still a champion he won the lane on every single time because she's so strong in the one-on-ones once she picks up that skirmish as Saber against tanks. She's already locked in as a counterpick to the Maokai, so this is a lane controlled by Freddy. SK Gaming are back to the style we know. Expect an assassin in the mid lane from them as well.
And as was said on the desk too, this is the style that I think a lot of people expect them to go back to if they want to walk away with third place in the spring split here. So far, what we expect from this team. H2K, they have a few more picks though. Yarnin would not be surprised at all to go the Sivir. He does take it, and Ryu will lock in LeBlanc. And we have an H2K composition, Deficio.
And that's the funny thing about the SK Gaming bans here. Yes, they target their late game hyper carries for H2K, but that's not really been the main picks for them. Sivir has been the most played. Yarnin has lost one game on it, and he's won 10 on this champion. It is by far his most played champion. So he's obviously happy getting this one, and you don't really hurt them too much by these 280 carry bans when Sivir is still open. It's a champion that Forgiven has not played in the LCS and seems to refuse to play it as well, so they couldn't even take it away. LeBlanc, I like it. Zed is banned, so there's no direct lane counter. There's still some good matchups against LeBlanc, and you can always argue, is it a skill matchup? The Zed LeBlanc, of course it is. But it also means if Ari gets locked in here for SK, LeBlanc will be able to control that at least in the early levels. Pre-level 6, you dictate the lane. That's also why they're not going for it.
They go for the Kassadin instead.
Okay.
So pre-level 6, I still feel that LeBlanc's going to dictate that lane. However, this provides a lot of pressure around the map. SK Gaming have given themselves a number of options here. Let's see if their gambit pays off. With the compositions locked in,
okay,
this is going to be an interesting game 1.
I like the change from H2K overall if you look at their composition, because we talked about how Lulax had just played Sejuani and Gragas in all his games here in the playoffs. Now he's going back to the early junglers as well to try and match Svenskeren and his aggression here and fight him one-on-one in Italy. He's still fantastic in the small one-on-one 2v2 fights, The reason she's been picked less in Europe is because teams focus on Cinderhawk tanks, again, a bit safer, I guess you can say, when it comes to scaling to late game, when Italy has to make plays in the early game. But same goes for Rek'Sai on SK Gaming, because Svensson likes to build Warrior Enchant and not the Cinderhawk on it. So we're going to see two junglers here fighting it out for early pressure. Now it's in favor of H2K in the mid lane, which is important because SK likes to roam from that mid lane to the side lanes and snowball them. They won't be able to do it on a Kassadin in the early game. Once you get that Rod of Ages, that's where you can start making some plays and start moving around.
Right, and I think that it's definitely going to be very interesting where they're matching the aggression with the aggression in the lanes, and whoever's going to come out on top of that one definitely dictates the pace of the game. Now, with the picks and bans locked in, guys, we're going to head on to the rip, but before we do, go ahead, hop on Twitter and let us know what your predictions are going to be. Tweet at LL Esports. Of course, the hashtags H2K win or SK win. We'll be tallying those up in the game, but for now, we're about to load up onto the rift, and the crowd is definitely hyped for this one, guys. I hope you are at home. Game number one of this third place match here in Madrid, Spain, is about to get underway. Here we go.
Let's see what happens in the early game. We know SK Gaming as a team, they struggle if they fall behind. They have to do well in the lanes. They won't be able to win that mid lane from the start, but the Shyvana and the Caitlyn Janna, strong lanes. H2K should be lane swapping here to avoid it.
Yes, indeed. I think the lane swap would be the wise decision. We'll see the action starting off already as Ryu pokes down Fox. Just a little bit so far, though. That is the only aggression. There will be a sapling thrown in, and Freddy spotted as Yarnin brings up around the side to join him. And before we get really too far into this game, we're going to go ahead and hear a bit of thoughts from Kasing on facing the strongest bot lane in Europe.
I've played the Forgiven, like just dual Q and stuff, so I understand his playstyle. And I think Enray is a really, really good support. He's really underrated by the community, I think. And it'll be hard, but I think it'll be fun. Maybe they showed some weaknesses or had some problems during playoffs, because the difference between best of 1 and best of 5 is huge. Because some players might be tunnel vision onto one thing, another player might get really tilted. There's a lot of things that can happen in best of 5s, so anything can happen.
Truer words never been spoken, I think, and these teams found out last week that anything can happen in a best of 5 Difficile. Let's see what happens in this one, though. A lot of pings flying as SK Gaming not quite sure where H2K are, but they know the vicinity.
Yeah, they know H2K invaded the jungle. They have seen the wards being placed as well. Fairly standard level 1 warding for H2K to try and spot SK Gaming's dual lane, and they're obviously gonna find out they're not on the top side and will get the lane swap we talked about. SK Gaming here trying to set up a freeze in the bottom lane. They did manage to get all the minions grouped up very quickly and just pushing on 1 or 2 of them. But normally SK decides not to freeze in inner lane. So if they want to fast push it in with the likes of a Caitlyn, they want to get that tower advantage, then rotate to a dragon. And then once you have a BSO completed for Forgiven, they look for that 2v2 lane. That's how they normally place the lane swap. Now they had another week to practice.
Well, we might very well see that. Kasing Yarnin are actually doing a little bit of a freeze themselves, but there are 2 H2K members up on the top side as well. They might push this one in and swap back down.
So making the right play here. They're not going to swap down or anything. They freeze the wave because Freddy is a top laner who likes to TP up to his tower and try and sit and soak XP. Even in 2v1 lane, he's going to go for it. By freezing it, you stop that from happening from Freddy, and you force him to sit with Svensson and run around and farm the jungle at least. They have double smite. Shyvana is one of the greatest top laners when it comes to playing the jungle, at least, but she's also very item dependent with this smite here. First gang is onto Ryu.
Yeah, Ryu, he just hits level 3. Let's see if he can make it out alive. That would be one escape, and it looks like he'll make it. Throws the chains onto Freddy. Svenskar in there sitting with the double buffs. Kasing there to throw out a little bit of extra damage, pushes them back. We don't have first blood just yet, but there have been some serious moments of action between these two in mid lane.
So, also because SK Gaming likes to push that bottom lane with Forgiven. If you freeze top lane and you force Shyvana to come up there on her own, often what happens is you then send the support up to help her as well, so you have a 2v2 lane. By taking away Enraided from this lane, then you can put your own top lane and just have a fairly standard one-on-one where Forgiven keeps pushing in the wave, so your top laner gets free farm and free XP, while the Shyvana has to fight for every single one, even with a Janna. We see SK is not adapting that style, at least early on. They're just allowing or putting Freddy on his own here. H2K needs to come and gank him because he has no flash. You can push him out of this lane so easily and deny him everything.
Right, and neither top laner now with their teleport as Otawamne goes down to do exactly what you just said, soak up that farm with a bit of help from Lulax, Forgiven, and Rated still pushing in on the tower. Howling Gale will miss Otawamne, but still, he is able to clean some of that minion farm up. Meanwhile, up at the top, yeah, Kasing has rejoined Yarn, and that's going to push Freddy back.
It's not the strongest gank in the world, but it's enough. Just having 2v1 to push him away, he cannot take these greedy trades as an early or a under-leveled Shyvana, I guess we can say.
Little drag.
Instead, an SK Gaming style. It's so funny how they value getting gold for themselves and they don't care about you. Like, you can get all the farm you need. That's fine, as long as we get what we want. That's the SK Gaming mentality. So that's why they always push in the waves, and they will take your tower, and they don't care about your top laner getting 450 CS from it. It often, or can end up backfiring for them. Here's a gank.
A backfire. Fox still sitting on level 4 right now. Kasing, as you mentioned, not the most effective of ganks, but they do force Fox back. Lulix was hanging around the backside as well, and he's just going to go ahead and keep clearing through his jungle. But enough pressure towards the middle and on the bottom side means SK can't attempt the dragon or anything else right now.
No, I would really prefer still, though, if you just value denying Freddy farm and XP top lane, because then your top laner gets such an advantage because he keeps getting the waves here. But with Kasing roaming to mid lane, yes, okay, he shows that you cannot start an easy dragon right now, but he also allowed Freddy to get back and at least get some XP and CS. The wave is pushing in for H2K now on the top side. Kasing is there to try and zone him away, but Freddy has already gotten a little bit more than he probably should have for them.
Yeah, he's been keeping pretty well paced with Otawamne. The jungle on the bottom side pretty bare, as has been visited by both Lulix and Svenskeren. Finds out as he tunnels his way through. They may be looking to dive onto the tree, but Otawamne
has a ward
safe
as well.
Back enough for now.
Yeah, and look what they're trying to do as well, H2K here. Because now they know Otawamne is level 5, he's got a Ruby Crystal, he's fairly tanky. Diving him is somewhat risky for SK, so they can leave him. That means suddenly the focus is on the top side. They don't care about this dragon being taken. They want to push away Freddy from this big wave, take the tower as well, and then swap down to the bottom side before SK can take a tower. And suddenly, yes, you lost the dragon, but you have a gold advantage from the lane swap. So that's going to be the strategy for H2K here. Push this one in, get this tower down, and go down here before Forgiven takes the bottom lane.
Now with the dragon picked up, #1 going over to SK, they may have to kick it into high gear with taking this tower and moving down bottom. Yarn and Kasing still trying to deny the minion farm so that Freddy can't get much back, as he had already gone back to base. They will just let that wave run out, proxy a little bit of the minions before retreating home. But I think this tower is going to be gone pretty soon. Svenskeren sitting there on the Krugs. Otawamne is going to spot him thanks to that ward, and he backs off. Looks like we could be in for a trade.
Oh, we can see how Lulix is trying to come down and save the tower. It's very clear what H2K is trying to do. I think SK will be able to take this one on the next wave, and therefore will even it out. Get the dragon as well. The only loss for SK is some farm and XP on Freddy, which can be important. I mean, he's gonna be this split pushing threat on a Shyvana. But later we go into the game, once he gets the skirmish, Saber.
Ryu, he's gonna dash, but he's ignited in there. Pops his passive, he's gonna burn his flash as well. And it looks like Ryu has made the master escape. This time.
This time, had to use the summoner though. Nothing being blown from SK except for one offensive summoner in the middle and the ignite. Lulix in here to defend now. Important
Should
thing
be able
is
to hold this casting off for now.
But Forgiven got to go back. He had his BF sword already. He gets a second Dorn's Blade where there's only boots on the side of Yanen. And this lane is still in favor of SK. So once they go back to the 2v2 lane, look for them to put a lot of pressure, push H2K out of the lane, and then suddenly you can roam to a mid lane and start pushing down another tower while moving between the lanes for SK. So they're gonna have the early pressure simply because of this Caitlyn pick still being very, very strong. Mid game is obviously where it falls off, but we're not there yet.
Right, we talked about how this is not a lane that Yarn and Kasing wanted to take straight up, especially not when they don't have a tower to fall back to. We'll see what happens with that one, but for now, Otawamne back up in the top lane as the swap is completed. Still not sitting too far behind on the farm. Yarnan takes a lot of damage, spell shield burned through and raided there to try and poke him out while Forgiven was soaking on the damage, and Lulix hanging around in the bottom side. Let's see if he can bait Forgiven into a bad situation.
Ryu is roaming as well. They're all moving down. They're going to be spotted by multiple wards.
So low here too.
TP as well. There's going to be a 5 versus 2 in the bottom lane. They really want to kill this Caitlyn.
Yeah, they do. Oh, the heal is popped immediately. The chase is on though as they get on the hunt. 2 flashes burned from SK's bot lane, and they just get out of dodge. H2K pick up nothing.
Yeah, but look at the adaptation here for H2K. They had pushed in the top wave, so there was no threat for Fred at least getting instant damage. He will still be able to push it down. Svensson can even join after taking a blue buff and punish H2K for investing 5 guys on the bottom side. Yes, they got a few flashes, but SK can definitely turn this in their favor.
They certainly can. Svenskeren now going on a bit of an invade of his own as he heads into H2K territory to grab himself a blue buff. He will secure it, and no contest available. Odoamne taking his place back up in the top to try and push back the minion wave that's been there. Meanwhile, Ryu continues to try and fend off Fox in the mid lane. We'll see how that goes in just a moment.
Using this blue buff is fairly important because LeBlanc will have problems clearing the waves and keep her mana up. So this goes back to the whole, if SK pushes in the bottom lane now with the Caitlyn, who will be stronger than the Sivir, and then rotate to mid lane, you can drain the mana for LeBlanc very, very easily. And that can set up a potential dragon. It can even set up for a mid tower going down. Let's see how SK decides to play this one now that they already denied the buff. Lulix is gonna notice, he probably already knew from the whole invade.
Well, now he does for sure. Singh still trying to harass and harangue Fox, but the damage just isn't that much. And Rated roves around as well. The vision game is fairly strong from both teams in this side of the river, but SK are the ones that had already secured the dragon. Going to be 2 more minutes before the next one comes up. Lulek clearing out that pink ward, hops into the Baron Pit to avoid Svenskeren.
And we see H2K trying to read the play that SK could have made in a minute's time or so by sending Jan and Kasing mid already to just keep pushing it in. So you no longer rely on the LeBlanc as the solo wave player in here, who will, again, as we said, have problems keeping the mana up. Instead, you just put Jan in here, you get him out of that 2v2 lane, and Kassadin doesn't provide any proper wave there to defend his tower. So with a Nidalee who can poke and heal up your AD carry to buffer attack speed, you can push it in over and over. And if SK ever leaves this mid lane, tower will take quite some damage. And that's how H2K is trying to respond before SK can make a play.
Yeah, making plays, though, that's what Odoamne is trying to do solo. He jumps onto Freddy 1-2-2, but not a whole lot of damage. We usually call that one the wet noodle fight. Well, 2 big tanks just battering at each other. That's another way to describe it. For now, it hasn't really yielded much. Svenskeren looking to come up through the mid, but he's spotted out by a pink ward. Yarnin and Kasing look to push him back from that one as they pop another in there. It's going to be swept away very quickly. Oh, not quite.
Now it's gone. And SK putting Forgiven now back in this mid lane, or back for the first time in the mid lane, as he already pushed the bottom side. So we can very clearly see what both teams want to do. One is trying to defend simply, and one, SK Gaming, is trying to be the proactive one. It's trying to be the one forcing your towers down with this Caitlyn. Use her while she's still strong, because that's why she's considered by some AD carries in Europe a good pick right now, is because you can create that big goal lead in the early game, so you skip your own weak mid game because you get 2, maybe even 3 items completed fairly fast, and then you already hit a late game point where she, of course, is fantastic again.
Yeah, trying to make up for
but you have to
the deficits.
Get these towers down. You have to get this gold here, otherwise it takes too long.
They also could very well use this next dragon buff. Looks like no one's going to be taking it right away. Odoamne moving up to the top side. Just Freddy has the teleport off of cooldown. Odoamne is going to have a little bit more time before that happens. Ryu makes his move solo through the river, but it is SK Gaming that are massing up by the dragon once again. H2K not responding to this one. They look like they may be more interested in trading the mid tower.
And we have seen 2 different warding tactics from the teams. SK Gaming has invested most of their wards in the river itself, or into the entrance of the jungle of H2K. So that's a bit more aggressive. They get to see where H2K is moving before they can set up any plays. While H2K has had defensive warding for most of the time. They've had pink wards in their own jungle to see if there was any invades from Svenskeren. So they've been, again, the passive ones. And that's also why SK Gaming can set up control around the dragon so easily and just pick it up as soon as H2K is not in position to contest it.
Right, and not only that, H2K didn't really respond to it. It looked like for a moment they might be pushing up in the mid, but they backed off, let the minions do their thing, and as a result, really got nothing for it. So 2 dragons to none is the score for SK Gaming, 13.5 minutes on the clock. Yarden and Kasing still pushing back waves in the middle, but SK seem to be, well, even on gold, a slight comfortable position thanks to those dragon buffs.
Oh yeah, 2 dragons to 0, standard SK Gaming style.
They typically get 3 in a row. I mean, it's been very common for them to pick those up almost uncontested just because they know when and where to go to pick those.
They are the team with won the most games by getting 5 dragons, simply as it is. 6 games has been with them getting every single one, get to 5 dragons, and then simply go close it out. Not offer a single one to the other team. So you always have to be careful, and you know the focus for them is on these dragons here now up in this top lane. Skirmisher Saber has been completed. Suddenly Shyvana can really start pushing it down so fast, and losing your top turret against the Smite top laner is so risky, because now it opens up for you to push the wave down to the tier 2 tower and move into your jungle, start taking away your Grom, take away the Raptors, potentially even a red buff, and then you start denying the enemy jungler so much farm from it, and you can so easily rotate from the top lane down towards the mid lane and collapse on whoever's standing there defending, and slowly but surely your towers will start dropping, you get pushed further and further back near your own base.
Right, and that's even, of course, assuming Svenskeren left anything in that side of the jungle to begin with. He's been very heavily invading to try and push this one back. Forgiven takes a whole heap of damage. I think twice about going back to that one, but the Janna shield is on, the wave is cleared, and Svenskeren keeps pushing them around the side. Yarnin pops the spell shield, but wasn't in position to save Ryu from the ace in the hole. As Fox moves around the side, again H2K are foiled, trying to push this first turret in the mid.
Yeah, and SK Gaming with the Caitlyn, with the Janna, doing the best they can to defend. They knew they had a Kassadin who couldn't hold the tower, so we just put him on the bottom side. H2K did the same with their mid lane. Okay, he's not going to defend the tower against an AD carry. Swap him down to an empty lane, let him pick up some farm, and then we start roaming in. And we see who can get a group of 4 guys first to at least get some damage on the tower, and we just slowly chip it away. It goes for both teams here. If you look at the mid towers, H2K's is down to 60%. The one from SK is down to 40%. So they've just been slowly getting a few hits on them every time they can. And now if you're out of position, you will lose your tower.
Quite easily. A decent-sized mini-wave comes through, and a lot of members of SK Gaming here as Yarnin takes some serious damage. This tower's gonna go down. On the hunt is Bot, looking for Forgiven. They won't find him. Yarnin, oh, Svenskeren comes forward and picks up first blood. He might have gone a little too far, but H2K too squishy. In comes the Dragon's Descent. Odoamne equalizes the kill score on Svenskeren, but Lulex and Odoamne now have to back off. It is 1-for-1. But SK Gaming got the better of that one, a tower and some serious damage.
Yeah, they got the tower. That's the important one for them. They've been working on it for quite some time, and they got the first blood as well for themselves and Svenskeren. Now you're just on to the next tower. I mean, your AD carry was left untouched. There's no wave to the left for H2K either. Well, why not just push on another one, Pyra?
Yeah, there's no reason not to, Deficio, and that's exactly what they're going to do. With the damage output they've got, it's going to be easy peasy SK Gaming. Ryu going forward, though. Forgiven may have stayed too long, but it's fairly obvious which one's the fake LeBlanc there. Now Freddy's going to finish the job he started in the top side. Just like that, SK Gaming, 4 turrets to 1.
Such a big goalie. Let's see it again. H2K had to walk around the river through their own Raptor camp to get it to defend. That's why they're late, lost it, and then with the great start for SK, getting a kill onto the AD carry. And what they're doing now is chasing just to keep poking you down, so you have to go back to base, and opens up this tier 2 tower. I mean, Forgiven, as we said, didn't even take any damage. Just give him a Janna shield, go on to next tower, pick it up as well. 3k goal lead now for SK, 4 towers down. You can now start invading into the enemy jungle, and you can now keep pushing down every single lane and quickly rotate between them, or just take a tier 2 tower if it's left undefended.
Precisely, and on H2K's side, it's been very, very difficult for them to really counteract these movements of SK Gaming. They haven't been given an opening to take any towers after the first up top. The Dragon has been firmly controlled by SK. Ryu will do a nice little snipe away on the Scuttle Crab. That will buy them a little bit of vision when they choose to go in that direction. Now, Kasing Ryu will join Yarnin in this middle, but SK still there to mount a defense, and they just can't get any auto attacks off, letting the minions do the work, but it's only chipping away.
And this is not good for H2K. Ryu trying to get a pick again, being water away now, but if H2K cannot start getting anything, any kind of gold, Shyvana is going to become impossible to deal with in the split push. We know the Caitlyn late game and the Kassadin late game as well from SK Gaming. So with them getting such a good early game, they might never hit a weak point. What they're trying to do here as well in the Kassadin is you go Athene's second. And the reason you do this is because with the new Kassadin, your ulti, the cooldown obviously has gone down a lot. I mean, at level 11, rank 2, it's 4 seconds. At level 16, it's 2 seconds. So you can spam your ulti so much, but it costs a lot of mana. What you're doing here is because Athene's gives you 30% mana back if you get a kill on assist, because you're W, when you hit a champion with your melee attack from it, gives you missing mana back as well. And because you have Dangerous Game, which is 5% for masteries, you get so much mana back from 1 kill or 1 assist as a Kassadin that you can drain your mana pool when the fight starts and get this kill and then keep jumping around.
Talking about the fight starting right now, the Dragon begun by SK Gaming. You saw a couple attempts by Ryu to pick off Forgiven, but they were unsuccessful. Otoamne going in on Forgiven. That is going to be the
Ryu
Dragon
got it.
secured thanks to Ryu. The Monsoon's out on unrated, but SK are scrambling around here. Ryu is going to go extremely low. Fox will polish him off with an ult sphere. Let's see what happens after this. A double kill is picked up. Ryu, Yarn, and Lulex all down. Kasing, they've gotten the Dragon, but they're going to pay dearly for it. That's a triple kill on a Kassadin. And Otoamne, it's going to go down. That's the ace. Svenskeren picks it up. SK Gaming, 5 kills traded for the Dragon.
Yeah, we're 19 minutes in here. 2 Dragons for SK. Massive goal lead. They just got an ace as well here. H2K tried to take the fight. Baron has just spawned, and this is how we welcome Baron, by killing him.
And why the hell not? Let's take a look at how this fight started. They try to jump in. The ace in the hole pushes Lulex back. The Dragon aggroing everyone, but then...
Look at your minimap here. Shyvana is behind H2K, so when they engage in, there's a perfect flanked option for Freddy. Meanwhile, Forgiven, despite being targeted by Otoamne, gets away, doesn't really take a whole lot of damage from it. And now it's just cleanup time. The Kassadin can start jumping around. There was no CC to lock him down. Freddy came in from behind as well. H2K are too far behind. They have 0 damage, and there are too many carries from SK they have to lock down at once.
Way too many carries for them, and they may have been able to secure the Dragon. A bit of a mistimed smite from Svenskeren, but nonetheless, an ace picked up that the Baron on top. Talk about turning a situation to your advantage. With that, SK secure themselves a 7,000 gold lead on top of everything else. And look at that score on that Kassadin. 3-0-3. Completed the Athenes.
Yeah.
Now he has a needless. Talk about a number of carries, Officio.
Now you go for that Hourglass. Other build path, you can go Rod of Ages into Kodak into Hourglass if you want that, but now he had to go for the Athenes for himself. And just look at the team fights now. Try and pay attention to the Kassadin. If he goes in for 3 or 4, 5 quick ultis with the low cooldown, yes, he's gonna be out of mana, but it doesn't matter because by that time you should have secured a kill or an assist, and you get such a sick amount of mana back. It just flies back up and you get another jump. Even though it cost 800 mana at that time, you can still do it because it should secure you another kill or assist. And that's the way you want to play this one. It is also a way to make up for your fairly weak mid-game normally. In this case, or early to mid-game, because now you simply use your ulti as your main damage source.
Now with that, H2K are going to find it very, very hard to fend off the attacks. This bottom lane starting to be sieged on as Ryu jumps in, jumps out, takes some damage for his trouble with the Baron-empowered minions just chipping away once again. H2K find themselves very, very far behind, just not able to do anything, and it really comes down to SK's superior team fighting in that case. Yes, it was easier to do when they had such an advantage, but they executed it flawlessly after giving up the Drake. We'll see what they're able to do here in this 4v4.
And SK Gaming has been controlling that river all game long. So every time a Dragon was spawning, SK Gaming were in the better position. They had the vision down. They knew that they could basically decide the fight. So here when H2K said, okay, we cannot risk giving them 5 Dragons. We have to go for some sort of fight here. We have to try and make a comeback. Otherwise, the game is just going to run away from us anyway. Then SK Gaming could see everything. We saw Freddy coming in from the side as well. It was just a perfect setup for them. And a Kassadin going crazy in the fight.
Well, everyone tunnel visioned onto Forgiven. Fox was able to creep up on them and just do a serious amount of damage. This tower starting to take more. In comes Otoamne, and let's see if they get pushed back. The Dragon's Ascent comes down. Forgiven staying alive as he picks off Lulex, taking down the Kitty Yarnin, trying to run away, but he's popped up by Svenskeren. Freddy chasing through Otoamne, trying to frontline if he can. Svenskeren is down. Freddy is tanking the tower. Can H2K push him back? It looks like it. The tower may not do it, but Otoamne will. But in comes Fox. They're gonna pick them all up. A double kill in. Can he pick the triple? He just might, and Raiden throws the ignite, but following through, a triple kill. They don't even care about the towers. Down goes in Raiden, but Fox has come up with another triple kill, and they're gonna get nibs.
The fact you don't even have to worry about how many stacks on your ulti you have as a Kassadin, that you can keep jumping as long as you secure a kill, makes him so good in these fights if you don't lock him down instantly. Once again, focus was on Forgiven at first. He stayed alive. Yes, okay, SK went a little bit over greedy. Walked under the tower. We're only 23 minutes into the game. Nobody can really tank it up. But they still managed to get more kills. Let's see it again. Engage coming from Odo Omni is gonna flash onto Forgiven. And Radiant is here to try to protect him together with the rest of SK. He stays alive. They get the first kill on Lulex as well. Everything been invested onto this Caitlyn. SK Gaming decides we can go for the chase here. Dive on the tower. Sadly for them, it's the wrong people tanking it first. And then H2K managed to simply just kite back, buy a bit of time, use the tower as much as possible. But the turnaround is still that we're gonna have a Kassadin who just refuses to run out of mana because every time he gets the kill, he gets enough for another ulti.
Right, as we see it right here, Freddy finally ends up going down. The flash.
You gotta see him in slow
Fox
motion
just says, "That's okay. I can clean up in the blink
Still full
of an
mana.
eye."
Okay, so he jumps again. It costs 800 mana at this point, but it doesn't matter for him because he knows he's gonna secure a kill. Boom, goes back up to 50%. That's another jump. Kissing flash away, and that's why he didn't get the kill.
So they get even more. You take a look at Fox on your screen. Again, H2K have been tunneling their vision onto Forgiven. They've neglected this Kassadin. Now they just can't touch him. The fancy footwork, rift stepping all over this H2K squad.
And SK Gaming might be the first team to beat H2K when they play Maokai. They're 8-0 on this champion in the top lane. It's been the main pick for Odo Omni. He's been so good on these tanks. But because SK Gaming has secured such a massive lead, even from the laning phase with these early towers going down, and because that Shyvana as a counter pick to it who could win the lane one-on-one and even take a tier 1 tower for it, H2K has never gotten to a point where Odo Omni can be a big tank.
Right, they've been stuck in, you know, in this mid-game, this now later mid-game, while SK Gaming, they've just been able to barrel forward and just pick up a number of items, stack themselves up. Not just the Kassadin, but he is an integral part of this killing squad. And SK Gaming, you know, they're doing what they've done best this split, and they've gone back to the basics, but they've done it with some new champion choices, and this is how it's working for them.
Only difference is they didn't have a lane bully in the mid lane who could win the lane and then roam to the side lanes. That's the only difference for SK Gaming and the start. The rest, Caitlyn, Janna, have fun 2v2. Shyvana top lane, fantastic, strong, as we mentioned multiple times.
And also, H2K did not starve Freddy of farm. They pushed him back a number of times, but they weren't able to keep the farm from coming to his doorstep.
They had a situation where they could decide, say, okay, are we gonna leave Odo Omni on his own in the bottom lane, and then we try and focus purely on a no-flash Shyvana top lane, zone her away from everything, take her tower as well, and simply set her so far back, because remember, she has to build Skirmisher's Saber to use the Smite, to use the Cinderhulk, so her item build is very expensive. They didn't do that. They allowed Freddy to get quite a lot of farm in that lane. And meanwhile, they still lost the tower on the bottom side. So SK Gaming didn't really lose anything in the swap, except for maybe 10, 12 CS on Freddy. And then also with these early dragons that they managed to pick up, they forced, or somewhat forced, H2K into a fight, which ended up being an ace for them because they had no vision around it and they just felt forced to go for it. SK here, double ping ward, and the reason they do this is obviously, or triple even.
Ping ward, yeah.
Normally teams, if they're so far behind, they try like a ward outside of the Baron pit, just around the corner here to see if they can spot something. That's completely cleared away. Triple ping from SK, that's even a change. SK Gaming buying pink wards.
Yeah, they've really seemed to have learned something or other here. Fox now caught out, isolated from the team as they attempt to take this Baron. It's going to really be Forgiven though, picking up Lulex up by the Baron as they turn the aggression around. Fox deciding not to go back on this one, see if he can make the play with his team, but they may not even need him right now. Odo Omni being chased out. SK Gaming push them all back. There is no smite for another 20 seconds. Let's see if they attempt this Baron once again. Meanwhile, bot lane.
Yeah, super minions are coming in again. SK Gaming is just trying to pull H2K out of their own base and let the super minions do some work. There's no TP for Freddy, so don't expect any kind of backdoor.
Oh, that is the whole
happening.
damage. My goodness.
Yeah, we never really hit the, oh, Caitlyn, she's weak in the mid game.
No, it completely skipped.
Almost sitting on 3 items completed. BT coming in next for Forgiven.
It's sub 30 minutes right now. We'll see what happens here as they maneuver around the Baron pit, clearing out the wards as they go. Make sure that H2K is completely in the dark. Yarnan, meanwhile, trying to push in the mid. They still haven't taken this tower down. Oh, that damage out of Freddy with the burnout after he throws down the challenging smite. And SK Gaming right back at this Baron again. We'll see if H2K's got anything left in the tank to respond to it. The chase is on. Dragon's Descent onto Lulex. Yarnan, he's gonna pop his heal. Has to go flash. There's the inhibitor coming back up, but it may be too little too late. A double kill from Fox. Odo Omni isolated from the pack as Forgiven picks up Ryu. Odowanne's gonna go down. Kasing, the only one safe for now. Maybe I spoke too soon, or maybe not. Fox comes through, and so does Kasing. Another ace. This time, SK Gaming are eyeballing the end of the game.
Such a nice game from SK Gaming. They had everything under control. We saw them swapping around early on to avoid the early pushes, to make sure the Kazanin could farm. And you know what? It all paid off. 29 minutes in.
29 and a half, you're right. H2K down a game. SK Gaming back to basics, and they look dominant.
I just love this Kazanin build so much. I mean, even late game.
You've been talking about it all week, I can tell.
You get 40% cooldown reduction late game, and then your ulti has a base cooldown of 2 seconds at rank 3. How do you stop that man from just jump? Oh, here's some more mana. In the end as well, your Netherblade, I believe it gives like 40% missing mana back if you hit a champion with it. Athene's 30%, 5% for masteries. That's amount of mana. Means you can always go for the next one, always go for the next one. And it really worked for them. But we have to go back to early game here. Because it's not about the team fighting power. Okay, that was great. But early game was where we saw the big lead being pulled from SK Gaming. Had the stronger laning phase, in the side lanes at least. And as we mentioned, not really trying to deny Freddy a whole lot. Up in that top lane, they instead seemed to be happy trading towers.
Which is strange considering that they gave up their bottom side control. They just ceded that over to SK and Forgiven and Rated, and it not only resulted in the dragons that we're used to seeing from them, but from there, SK just seemed to have the game under wraps. H2K was forced to dance to their tune, and it really ended up being the death of them.
And we just saw a very defensive approach from H2K with the warding. It was never in the river. It was always just in the entrance to the own jungle, so SK Gaming could freely move around in the river here, near the dragons, and just take it whenever there was a chance, and that really set H2K so far behind as well.
Yeah, some fantastic warding from SK Gaming this time around. Now that's game 1 in the books. To break that one down even further and get us ready for the next, we're going to go ahead and send it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much, Pyra. SK Gaming, their fastest win of the entire season so far here, going back to basics. Let's touch on picks and bans. We saw Lucian and Gray's bans coming out for H2K, and SK said, fine, we're just going to ban out Jinx and Kog'Maw as well and play your game. What did you make of the rest of picks and bans?
Yeah, speaking to N-Rated earlier, he said when we ban those AD carries, it really throws them off as far as the compositions they can go. They felt like whatever AD carries they had left and what compositions they would play, they'd have the counters for it, and it was actually really genius. When these two teams face, it's the dragons that are going to be the most important. They're securing the early dragons, and through the draft, they're able to secure both a winning dual lane and a winning top lane, forcing H2K to send their dual lane top. And when that happens, and you have your dual lane bottom, that's a free dragon for you. And when you get the first one, you usually get the second one. So it's just a very great pick and ban out of SK.
It really was, and I think I have to highlight and reiterate the winning top lane matchup. Freddy was not denied farm. There was not enough pressure, despite H2K trying to make it happen. They sent a couple roams up top. It didn't work out. They sent a bunch of people down to try jump on Forgiven and Rated. That didn't work out either. So the early game plan that H2K attempted to implement didn't work out. And you saw the rest of the mid game completely fall apart.
Yeah, one thing that is very clear is that SK expected the lane swap. They played along that H2K is going to lane swap 100%. The early dragon, as Leviathan pointed out already, is super important for both teams because whoever gets that first one is usually able to secure the following ones. And SK just had the pressure all over the place. H2K tried to put some pressure on the top lane and deny Freddy. It didn't work at all. Freddy came ahead and even a little bit ahead in the early game. So it was just perfectly played out by SK.
Definitely, and as you said, if you get those first couple of dragons, the other team has to react, and H2K was feeling the pressure. The pressure. Let's get a replay up on the screen of the third dragon that was contested, because H2K really want to get this one.
Yeah, as the official pointed out correctly, you got the Shyvana coming in from the flank before this fight even started. Rio went in with the steal. This steal should never have happened at all, just with a LeBlanc Q. And then you see Freddy coming in, going for the carries, and on the right side of the screen, Forgiven is let alone. He's let alone with only Maokai. If the Maokai engages in that situation, you want your damage dealers on that carry. So you want Ryu and you want Hjarnen on Forgiven to deal some damage and put him down quickly so you can clean up. What happened was the Kassa win going in and just cleaning it up.
Yeah, you really did. And the thing that stands out to me about that particular fight, H2K are not a team that traditionally picks bad dragon fights. If a dragon is going, they will either let it go and pressure elsewhere on the map, or they will fully commit to an objective. with Ryu going for the steal and Odawamne going for Forgiven, you've even got the team H2K split up on the team fight. It felt like they weren't on the same page. Earlier when Hyanin initiated with the Silver ulti, it was about 2 or 3 seconds early. The rest of the team wasn't there. I think H2K are not on the same page, and they need to get on the same page if they want to bounce back against SK Gaming.
Yeah, when you're going to dive a carry like that, how they jumped onto Forgiven, you have to kill him. And they weren't able to pick up the kill, so Forgiven lives, and then Kassadin was just free to kill everyone that he wanted to.
And one very crucial thing is, if you're playing against the Kassadin, you want to be grouped. Whenever he goes in for the offensive jump, you want to lock the Kassadin down and then kill him as fast as possible. What happened was, H2K split it up all the side, Maokai as the only tank in that situation, being alone on Forgiven, and the rest just spreading all on the field. That makes it very easy for the Kassadin to just jump from one target to another and pick everyone single down.
Able to find those 1v1s.
Yeah, absolutely. And H2K, as you said, didn't find their footing. And the moment that SK did win a fight, the Dragon fight and the tower after, they just kept on pushing. And as said, the Caitlyn was just untouched in the back, and the Kassadin getting riled up as well. One quick thing I want to touch on before we look ahead to the next game, the Shyvana top lane smite this time around. I mean, of course, it worked now because everything worked for SK Gaming, but I'm yet to see a game here in the European LCS where I say, whoa, this has given me a clear advantage for this or this team.
I completely share the sentiment, and I think even if Freddy had Flash in this particular matchup, it would have still worked out the same because it wasn't the challenging smite that helped them win those mid-game team fights.
Yeah, and just he's doing his best Zamboni impression, just laying down the ice. I was really happy to see. I assume he trained it over the last week because he was not that too impressive on it in his previous series that he played, but he played it very well today.
The idea behind the challenging smite is that you have an exhaust and an ignite at the same time. You're going to smite the target that you go for, then you get 20% less damage, and you get the true damage on hit. So on paper, it's really powerful. But I personally have seen it work twice. One time in the LPL, one time in LCK. In the EU LCS, it was never a deciding factor.
Come on, EU LCS.
And one more thing, this patch we're playing on is not the current live patch. When you smite Gromp, it still does 10% rather than 5% of damage. And so it's already known to the balancing team that the current Gromp they're playing on is overpowered. So taking the smite is actually pretty smart.
Well, we'll see if maybe in the game where SK gets behind and we see the real power of the challenging smite coming out of Freddy. Let's look ahead to the next game, Trevor.
Well, the thing I want to highlight, you said if SK gets behind. SK played exactly their style. Last week against the Unicorns of Love, they tried to go late game. They picked scaling team comps, they didn't pick lane bullies, and they lost late game to the Unicorns of Love. SK go back to what their bread and butter playstyle is, and they absolutely demolish H2K. I'm not expecting them to get behind as long as they pick strong laning champions, because mechanically this sound, the stage, the lights, the crowd, it's not going to throw this team off. They've been here, they've done this. So as long as they play their recipe, I think chances are grim for H2K.
That was a big question for me coming into this game. How motivated is SK? How can you motivate a team that was supposed to win the whole thing, was first place after the split was over, and then has to fight a third place game? The motivation level, they give their everything. They are 100% in the game, they're in the zone. And one thing that I want to point out is, if you're H2K, you might want to think about betting the Kassadin, because the Kassadin was over 50 CS ahead and 1.5 whole items. As a LeBlanc, you want to one-shot carries. You want to be the one making the picks, and he wasn't able to do that because the Kassadin was always in his face. You can't let that go through a second time.
Yeah, you can't, but then the question is, do you leave then the Z open if you want to stick to your Lucian and Graves bans? I think for H2K, the key might not be in the bans, but just the way they take on the early game.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure the direction they want to take with the bans. I think the LeBlanc pick is good in theory, but yeah, like Dentis said, the Kassadin pick was just very good against it. I honestly think they could ban out Kassadin rather than Zed in this next match.
All right, well, we will see what they decide to go with. We need to take a short break as H2K look towards Game 2 to even out the series. Stay with us. We'll see you in 3.5.
Come on, boys. All right, good luck. Let's go. Come on.
They were unsuccessful. Odawamne going in on Forgiven. That is going to be the Dragon secured thanks to Ryu. The Monsoon's out on unrated, but SK are scrambling around. In comes Odoamne, and let's see if they get pushed back. The Dragon's Ascent comes down. Forgiven staying alive as he picks off Lulex, taking down the Kitty Yarnin, trying to run away, but he's popped up by Svenskeren. Chases on Dragon's Ascent onto Lulex Yarnin. He's gonna pop his heal, has to go flash. There's the inhibitor coming back up, but it may be too little too late. A double kill from Fox. Odoamne isolated from the pack as Forgiven picks up Ryu. Odoamne's gonna go down. Kasing, the only one saved for now. Maybe I spoke too soon, or maybe not. Fox comes through, and so does Kasing. Another ace. This time, SK Gaming are eyeballing the end of the game.
Such a nice game from SK.